What's up, YouTube? So today, putting this HD Polaris wheel bearing in right here. It's making some noise. The axle socket is a 27. So we're going to remove this bolt and that bolt to hold the caliper on. They're 15 millimeters. I have brass pads because I ride in a lot of mud. The stock pads only lasted like 2 months, but these have been on for almost 2 years. They're like 30–40%. That's not supposed to do that. That's not good. That's gonna suck to take off. All right, so next we gotta remove the radius rods. They're also 15 millimeters. Looks like the O-ring got pinched. L&W Fab, lifetime warranty, and I haven't had any issues with them. I bent the factory ones really quickly, and for the price, and they're made in the US. You can't beat that. Excellent quality. The O-ring is just sacrificial, but you know, it doesn't squeak or anything. So now we got to get the knuckle off, which is these bolts. They're 15 millimeter. You got to hold the nut on the backside. This thing is gross. So before I can press out the old wheel bearing and put in the new one, there's these 2 holes on a snap ring that goes around and it holds it in. And you're supposed to have snap ring pliers, but the snap ring comes out of the top, and so we're going to push from the back side. To be able to press down on the wheel bearing, you need this piece to grab it. You can't get to the bearing from this side because there's this lip that stops it from sliding this direction. So I'm going to try to put the balls in, and hopefully it'll grab so we can press it out. Now I'm going to try to push the inner race. All right, so you want something that'll sit on the race and not the hub, not the spindle. So I got this big socket. It's 1 1/16 or 11/16. I'm not sure. It's big. And then I'm gonna use the 27 as a spacer. All right, you wanna make sure that this is lined up straight, because if it wants to twist, it'll get wedged, and then it's more problems. There it is. Some assembly required. All right, now I'm gonna add some heat. Hopefully expand this thing, make the bearing easier to press in. Now that it's super hot, it's gonna be really hard to work on, but let's just see if it'll slip in. All right, let's see if this works. It's a little high on the right, so. You can use the old bearing to push the new bearing because it's the right size. And you don't want to push on the inner race. You need to push on the outer race so you don't mess up the bearing inside of it on the races. But don't push too far, because sometimes this bearing will get stuck in the housing. Hey. Now I just got to put the snap ring back in. Now that it's wet, hopefully it'll cool off a little bit. It's not too hot, but I need to put it back on. I like to put any kind of grease on the hardware. That way it doesn't get stuck the next time I need to change the bearing. All right, so make sure you put the axle in. That way it saves yourself some trouble. The washers and the nuts go on the inside. All right, let's ugga-dugga. Maybe 2 ugga-duggas. Now, we gotta get this inner race off. They make this puller for the races that get stuck on shafts. It'll pinch behind the race, and then you can push the hub out. But because of the rotor and the profile, it's not gonna grab it. I think we're just gonna cut it. I'm not gonna see much, but it'll protect my eyes. All right, so I cut just a little bit. I put a lot of heat into it, so I'm gonna see if it loosens it up. Got the bearing off. There's a little line where I hit the back, but that's not gonna hurt anything. Didn't actually cut all the way through. All right, I need to put the radius rods back on. I'm gonna put grease inside the splines. That way the axle doesn't get rusted to it. But first I just realized that this control arm swung out because both these rods let go. So I'm gonna put a jack under the frame, and that way we're less tension on this and I can swing it back in. This should line up. Cliff note, you can pull this off pretty easily. So put the bolts in while you have the axle out. It'll make everything easier. Don't forget to tighten the cotter pin before you put the wheel on. All right, to put the wheel back on, calls for 2 Ugga Duggas. All right, looks like I got it all finished up. There's no more play. It's ready to go hit the trails.